Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar on how simulation expanded capacity and improved safety in heavy equipment education at Alfred State College. I'm Steve Schmidt. I'm the COABE Professional Development Coordinator, and I'm so happy to welcome you to our webinar today. We first want to thank today's webinar sponsor, CM Labs, who's also helping to provide content today for our webinar. A few housekeeping things before we get started with our webinar. If you haven't already, I know a few people have so far, please introduce yourself in the chat so we know who you are and where you're from. I will also ask as we go through the webinar today, if you have questions for either of our presenters, please go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A, and we certainly will have time to go through those questions toward the end of the presentation today. So go ahead and chat in the chat, put your questions in the Q&A. One other important question that we always get with webinars is you will receive a certificate and a webinar recording link 24 hours after the end of today's webinar. And this will include the slide deck that the presenters are using today. Other resources, which would be available on COABE's professional development website, will be 48 hours after the end of today's webinar today. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters today. And we have two presenters. One is Jeff Stevens, and Jeff is the Dean in the School of Applied Technologies at Alfred State College. And very glad and appreciative of Jeff. And we also have Alan Limoges, who is the manager of product growth at CM Labs. And so, without any further ado, let me turn it over to you, Alan, for today's webinar. And thank you guys both so much for presenting today.
Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you everyone for being here. We'll get started. I just want to introduce CM Labs real quick for anyone who's not aware of what CM Labs does. We're the leader in training simulation and simulation software. And what we really want to do is empower operators of heavy equipment to achieve proficiency through cutting edge technology. That's what we're all about. And at CM Labs, I'm the manager of product growth for the construction line of equipment. So you can think of that as basically somewhere between product management and marketing. And I'm really obsessed over getting customers like Jeff, setting them up for the success that they deserve, quite frankly, in these challenging times with the labor shortage. So I'll hand it over to you, Jeff, real quick to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, hello. Thanks, Alan. My name's Jeff Stevens. I'm the Dean for the School of Applied Technology, as Alan mentioned, at Alfred State College. We are a 2-year, 4-year institution, higher ed, and specifically the school where I work at and oversee, we have about 1,000 students in the 2-year programs for skilled trades. And so that encompasses everything from the electricians, welders, culinary arts, building trades, masons, automotive services, all the way to what we're talking about today, heavy equipment operations. And so we are involved with students day to day. And so our students, though, learn very uniquely because they're in class for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And so it's sort of a unique style, but one that works very well. And we've been doing it for 50 plus years, and it's good to go.
Beautiful. Whenever we do these webinars, we like to get started with a poll. It kind of helps break the ice and actually helps Jeff and I understand just what type of person is here so we can best address what you guys are looking for. So you should see a poll up on your screen. The question is, what's the biggest challenge in your heavy equipment or skilled trades training program? So is it either limited access to equipment, safety concerns with new learners, which is very valid, limited capacity, getting students job ready faster, or is it something else? And if it's something else, please even put it in the chat what that other challenge that you're facing is. This really helps Jeff and I almost tailor the conversation to be able to answer your questions. So it looks like right now, limited access to the equipment is the #1 problem, followed by limited capacity. These are very common issues that we see, especially in the education world. It's not like everyone just has spare backhoes and excavators and motor graders to jump on at any time. So that's a very valid concern. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and share the results. So everyone should be able to see the results now. As we said, limited access to the equipment was the number one response, which is something that makes a ton of sense, right? And we'll be sure to address that later on in the webinar. So let's move on quickly to what we're here to talk about. And it's about Alfred State College and what Alfred State College did to surmount the challenges that they faced with limited access to the real equipment, right? So if you see right there in the challenge section, that was a major challenge for Alfred State. So it's very topical that was the number one answer in the poll. And we'll talk about the solution that they came to and the results. So if you're in a similar situation, then I think you'll really enjoy what we have to say. So let's get into it. Jeff, if you don't mind laying a bit of groundwork, what was it like if we go back in time before you had the simulator program? What challenges were you facing kind of at that time before simulation even entered the picture?
Yeah, as you were doing your poll, I had flashbacks, right? It was interesting to watch folks kind of click in. And the one flashback that I had that really came to my mind is the time that I had to start calling my industry partners and begging for that backhoe because our third one went down. We had no spare. We had a program to continue with, and we just really struggled. And so with moments like that I'm sure a lot of our folks here dealt with too, or deal with. And so you start trying to think about, how is this sustainable? How can we keep things going? And what attributes and what things can we do to mitigate these challenges and problems? And it's going to happen, but what can we do to mitigate those? So those were things that all flashed through my mind.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been challenging at the time, right? And there's safety issues too. It's not just like the limited access. It's like how if you give them access to the backhoe, they might not necessarily be trustworthy enough to jump on it right away, right?
Yeah, and every industry partner, has different levels of what safety is, right? And what if a sticker's scratched or if the seatbelt doesn't work. There's all levels to this whole thing, and we each have our own lines to draw there. And so you start drawing in from those resources, and this is all on top of calling the rental company, calling the leasing agency, begging, borrowing, stealing, getting a phone call the week before the equipment's supposed to be delivered for the semester, only to be told that, hey, there was this big construction project and they took our 3 backhoes, but we're going to send you over a nice skid steer. And so how you doing with that? And so, these were real challenges that we had and over and over and over had to deal with these. And each year, I thought we were getting things figured out, working with the faculty that were getting stronger and stronger, better relationships. And then we just kept having these challenges pop up.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like you kind of think that it must have been pretty jarring to know that, at the end of the day, you're not their number one priority. Their number one priority is going to be making money, right? So the moment that something comes up, that backhoe is off the table.
It is. You're exactly right. Because at the front of the conversation, we are education. Our funds are limited. We're trying to maximize that. So they're wonderful from the get-go. And our partners have been wonderful for years with educational discounts, with supports, with being accommodating. But at the end of the day, they have a job to do. They have a business to run, and they need to do that. And I couldn't fault them for that at all.
Exactly.
I totally understand. It's just one of those things. And on top of this, we had the whole COVID thing that went on, and that rocked the whole world, even to this capacity. And then when we got things rolling again, it was that big inrush of everybody needs something now. And so that literally was sort of a spark of this for us.
Okay,
something different needs to happen.
Of course, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think there's a lot of people here that are maybe in a similar situation. So what made you start thinking about simulation as a potential solution to what you were facing?
So as an administrator, as dean, I take 0 credit. it was all the faculty. They are the ones who first heard about it. It was sort of in conversations with our institutional advancement staff and our industry partners. So we have some really strong industry partners, nationwide companies that operate, and they have a very strong training facility that they send all their folks to, and a number of the students that they hire from us, right, to continue their education and growth. And so with that, our institutional advancement team went down to visit them. They were over in Texas and had a chance to see their simulation lab. I'm in ours right now, but they got to see theirs. They came back excited, and then couple the fact that, you know, the folks that support us and keep us going, and my president was excited, to the fact that the faculty started with this, hey, this looks kind of interesting. We'd like to get them here to visit and try this out. It wasn't really a hard sale for the guy in the middle to say, hey, let's give this a shot and look into it and talk a little more.
Yeah, and what was your first reaction? Was it one of like skepticism when you first heard about the simulators, or were you immediately on board?
I can't tell you which. It was a little of both. I'm going to be honest. And it depended on the moment. I can still picture in my mind the exact moment I walked through what we call our workforce development building and turned when we had the simulator set up. You know, CM Labs came to visit. They sent a trainer, a technician, to talk about it with our faculty so students could touch and feel it. I had spent the whole day trying to get administration above me over to come see, touch, feel. And so when I walked in and saw it, I thought, wow, this is much more than I expected. I did not expect this caliber, this level. And it literally looked like this one behind me. But I saw students on it. And I guess that's something, you want to know something, you just watch your students. They'll tell you whether the food's good. They'll tell you whether the experience is good. They'll tell you what they're feeling and thinking. And you can see it written all over their face. And so that helped us kind of understand kind of the playing field, right? Where we start.
That makes sense, right? Because they have no like skin in the game. They're going to tell you exactly what they think. And to be honest, they're probably going to tell you like more criticism than you would expect. And it's good. That's what you want. You want someone to kind of like shake it and see what comes loose, right?
They do. They do. They tell you when they're happy, but by golly, they do tell you when they're unhappy as well or frustrated.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did you see the simulators working? If you guys were training with real equipment beforehand, and that was a challenge, how did you see the simulators fitting into that world where you were already training on real equipment every once in a while?
So I guess, again, to answer that, I'd say we had a hard time. I really had a hard time figuring out how that would work. And so from my side of things, again, I'm not a heavy equipment operator. I'm a tradesman, but I'm not a heavy equipment operator. And so as we looked at the faculty kind of feeling this out, at that time we had 4 faculty, each from varied backgrounds themselves, industry, but varied backgrounds. There was skepticism, there were questions, I'm not understanding. But on the other hand, we watched and we asked students. Students are like, okay, there's a machine. There's 20 of us. How is this gonna work? What does this mean? Meanwhile, you got the guy like me in the background going, ooh, am I getting rid of all the backhoes? Am I good to go? Can I cancel that purchase order for next semester? And trying to understand, what that plays out to be.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be different for every organization, right? It really, there's so many variables into that calculation. There's no like one size fits all. I mean, one thing that we say at CM Labs is we're definitely not trying to replace the real piece of equipment by any stretch of the imagination, right? Where we see ourselves is to really bridge that gap between someone who comes in and knows very little about heavy equipment, like in the education world, and then they build that confidence. They know what the machine does, they know what the attachments do, and they can prepare themselves for all these situations that they would otherwise want to avoid in real life. Like, for example, on the simulator, you can tip the machine over. It's not like glued to the ground. And, we'd rather you tip the machine on the simulator than in real life. So to us, it's like in that transition phase. And then once you get into the real piece of equipment, that's not something we're looking to replace at all. If anything, we want you to hit that real piece of equipment and then hit the ground running. instead of kind of getting in there and saying, "Oh, what does this do? What does that button do?" And have you seen any difference in that regard?
So absolutely. And from an aspect, this is where our minds kind of got blown away with this whole concept. But when we first started, that's exactly where we were, Alan. We had students that some of which grew up with their fathers, their uncles, their moms that had worked in the industry, that had been on a backhoe since they were old enough to even crawl into the cab. Right. And then we had other students that are like, I don't know, I signed up for this program because I thought it's cool and I've never touched a thing in my life. By the way, I don't even drive a car. And so, I'm ready to run the excavator. And so you have that variance of student that comes in, and so we are challenged by that. There are distinct challenges when you try to monitor a student in our, we call it the sandbox. We have a few acres there where we run equipment and they actually dig and play and host that. And the faculty are nearby, and we have the fanciest of headsets that you can imagine, right? With noise canceling, but you're able to talk. The faculty can talk them through what's going on, but you're still not, right there when they grab the wrong throttle and the button or the wrong lever and they run it. Or one day there was even a student that I talked to afterwards, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry. Clearly, I have to get that throttle fixed because all I'm seeing happening is either all the way off or all the way on. So for some reason, you're not using that thing in the middle anywhere. And my God, you're running into tree stumps like crazy, and and all I'm thinking, right, is dollar signs breaking something.
Of
And
course.
and all they're thinking is, this is awesome. I'm just gonna take this bulldozer and knock the place down. And so you really have to get to that point of understanding what all equipment can do, should do, and how you can operate it.
Of course. I just see a question coming in the chat. We'll get to a lot of these questions later, but this one's very pertinent right now. And they're asking if you had any enrollment or capacity challenges before implementing simulators. Like, from my understanding, it wasn't that you had a shortage of people who wanted to be in the program. It was quite the opposite.
It was very much the opposite. So we had challenges for the get-go. Our programs for the heavy equipment operations are one of the largest ones that are consistently on a wait list. Okay. And so it's not a problem of filling. In fact, our goal was to expand the program, but we were challenged with finding equipment, cost of equipment. We aren't the cheapest program by any means at Alfred State College, but and so those are all dynamics. And so the enrollment challenges that we had were, we don't guarantee 100% seat time. Students come in, they think it's 100% seat time. That's not what we're here to do. They learn a whole lot more than just that. Soil types, maintenance, operations, job site analysis, all of those aspects, pre-inspections, post, all that. And so once we get students to that point where they understand, we do shoot for a benchmark, right? We want 25% plus of seat time for them in the chairs, but you still have to balance that with a student cohort. And so at Alfred, our cohorts are 20 students to a faculty, to a class. We have ISAs, instructional support assistants, that support and help that. And so to get that enrollment capacity, and obviously we want our classes fully enrolled because we're trying to maintain a business here too, a functionality. But you also have to balance that against 3 backhoes, 2 skid steers, 4 mini excavators, and depending on who you talk to, and I have since learned this, you never have enough. You never have enough. So you have to get to the point of what do we have that's sufficient? This every student wants their own bulldozer. Every student wants their own backhoe, as does every contractor. And I guess that's a really important aspect here to say our challenges are not unique in education. It's what the industry is dealing with day in and day out on their projects. They have to balance their equipment between sites, balance their equipment between operators, and the skill levels of those operators, old equipment versus new equipment, and who's gonna operate this piece of equipment a little more tenderly because we know we've got limited life on that transmission or those tracks, and which operator is going to take better care of a piece of equipment, grease it properly, clean it properly, inspect it properly, and which one won't. So these are real life issues that we're dealing with, and that's the best part. Students learn real life.
Yeah, exactly. Like they get into the construction industry and they don't expect it to be all fun and games. There's some admin stuff to deal with. It's a job at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking a lot about the challenges that you guys faced before simulation. So that's sort of the pre-simulation part of the conversation.
Yep.
Now let's shift gears to adopting simulation. But first, I have some pictures of the sim room that you're in right now, actually, Jeff. So let me share my screen real quick. And maybe you could give people a little bit of a tour of what you built at Alfred State.
Yeah, so again, we give credit to a team approach on here. So when we decided we wanted these or could use these, our institutional advancement team talked with our donors, talked with industry, and we were able to raise funds enough to support that. And so we started with 4 simulators. We were able to work with our grants department and find a good opportunity. And so the room I'm in right now is the room that you're looking at, on the photos, which ironically is not our permanent location for these units. We are still in our temporary location as we build and are finishing this semester, finishing construction on the permanent sim lab on there. So we started with 4 machines and we're operating, rotating students through. I'm literally sitting at the classroom tables because the students do more than just operate a piece of equipment. They have to learn the pre-test or pre-inspection, post-inspection checklists. They have to do soil tests and layouts. And so students will work in at the center tables here while the other students are maybe operating a piece of equipment. And so we worked it in to our existing program, our existing curriculum, kind of on, let's try this out, let's see how this rolls, and do our best to find out when it works and when it doesn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, it's difficult to have enough simulators for an entire classroom of people. So I like the way that you divided it kind of among like the paper side and then the actual seat time.
Yep. And in the one photo right there, you sort of see the long table, but what's in the foreground with the 2 monitors are literally the teacher station. So each simulator is connected to a teacher station where they monitor things. And for us, now we have 8 simulators and on there. And so the teacher monitors all those students. They can walk around, talk with them. They have a mobile tablet, but they also can watch the students as they complete tasks and assignments from a grading assessment standpoint and see where they're at. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. From that station, we have something called Intellia Instructor, and that's where it updates all the time, and you can see like the data basically flowing in, and you could tell when someone is getting stuck or they haven't progressed in a while, and that's when you can go and interact and give them kind of some pointers, and that's where you have that face-to-face conversation. But I imagine as an instructor, must be are there any challenges with the simulation room that are kind of new to the instructors of dealing with some people on the seat, some people on their laptop? Have you noticed anything there?
yeah, I think one of the instructors once said, when I first started, I thought this was some fancy video game, right? And we watch our children and our nieces and nephews, and they're working systems and things that are all foreign to me. And so I remember when the instructor said that, and that was part of the onboarding process, right? Getting everybody to understand how this is going to work as you figure it out yourself. And for us, that was probably the one thing we did really right, is to not push everything so hard, so fast. So for one whole semester, we didn't just make it the course or make it the curriculum. We explored. We worked together. So when we had the 4 units, faculty could come in here with their class and sort of explore and learn and grow. Weather helped a lot. Everybody loves a simulation lab when it's pouring rain outside on there. And so there were times where it worked really, really well. And then there were other times where you didn't use it or need it. And I'll be honest, Alan, it's not much different, again, like I said, to real life, because that was the same way. We weren't running the backhoes and the bulldozers out in the field when it was pouring rain or -10. You just don't. And so it provided an opportunity to maintain a level of education that we did not have before, that we were able to now in a somewhat controlled environment. And students really kind of embrace that, right? The student that was sitting here where I am right now, while this buddy is working on a piece of equipment, is able to watch and see what they're doing, able to see where they're struggling, and was just waiting for their chance to say, Joey, I can do that better than you. I think I can figure it out. And and that's part of education, is sometimes taking the step back and assessing the situation, looking at it, and strategizing what you're going to do next. And so
Yeah.
that rotational sort of learning worked really well for us. And once we figured that out, it was like, okay, wait a minute, we don't need a simulator for every student. You know, we want a certain number, we want to get to a place, but this is how it works.
Yeah,
And
no, that's very logical. And I think it's underrated actually of the simulators. When someone's on there, you could be watching and learn from their mistakes. Like there isn't room for multiple people in the cab of a real
yeah.
excavator, for example. But in this case, you can just sit and watch and and you learn actually just by watching, not necessarily having to be on the simulator all the time.
And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everybody came in all giggly and excited, right? There were some folks, with teachers included, at times that were really apprehensive, or really not, I don't think this is for me. I don't think this is for sure. And so we decided to take an approach, and again, I give faculty all the onus, but it isn't just something that the new students learn for 5 weeks and then nobody touches. We have actually worked to a point where the simulators are used throughout the entire 2 years of a student's training and a student's education. As we learned more of the capabilities of the units and what they could do, we found that this isn't just about hand-eye coordination is huge, right? That's entry level. Learning how controls work, learning it's not full throttle all the way, all the time. And so, but once we passed that, there were exercises that we could do. And probably the two main things that I internalized as an administrator was the fact that faculty and students could now be assessed on level playing fields. So if you and I were working out at the field and I got to go first and I dug the ditch or whatever, and I filled it in, and then you came after me to dig the same ditch, our conditions have changed. Maybe it's raining now and it wasn't before. The soil is now disturbed where it wasn't before. But the Sims have now provided for us a level playing field so everyone has the same experience. And that's really important when you're timesing that by 20 students. From an
Yeah.
assessment standpoint, it's also huge because students will say, hey, I didn't get the same opportunity as so-and-so or such and such, and now I'm being graded on that. And so they know internally that they're being assessed at a same standpoint as everybody else. And so there's a little self-growth there, a little awareness of I'm doing all right. And it's not just because I got a good luck, right? I
Right.
didn't hit the rocks like everybody else hit the rocks.
That's great. Yeah. And it's not just about the confidence that it gives, but another thing that I know a lot of people in education have probably felt before or experienced is when a student says, oh, that teacher just doesn't like me or something. That's why he failed me. But the simulators provide like concrete data. You can't argue with numbers, right? And so you can have it in your class where if you don't pass this exercise with, 90% or 80%, or if you get over, two collisions, then you can't move on, and you can define that, and there's no arguing. It's either you got two collisions or you didn't.
Yeah. You knocked over the cone, you hit the pedestrian. I mean, there's pedestrians walking around here. The faculty can actually change the weather conditions, throughout and set that up. Again, it's equal playing field, but also be able to vary and adjust things. The other aspect to this, and this really hit home for me when we were talking to one of the industry partners, is, you hire a new employee or a new student comes in and they could tell us all day long that they've run a backhoe since they were 5 years old. And until you see them, you don't know. And so there's a liability issue in the place. There's liability for us when we put a student on a piece of equipment to know that, because even the equipment I rent, I have to turn it back. We have to turn it back in a certain condition. I bought a few windows in my day from our desk as windows get broken in a piece of equipment from things. And so you try to establish a level playing field of what folks do know. And there was an employer who said they actually integrated a simulator into their onboarding process, so that just because somebody wrote on their resume that they operated and talked the talk, now this is a chance to walk the walk. And so we've done the same exact thing. Students come in and talk, tell me, show me. And you can tell pretty quick someone who has experience and someone who really doesn't.
Yeah, I think of it as a two-way street. If the skills from the simulator make it to the real piece of equipment, then the skills from the real equipment translate to the simulator. One question I had for you is, were you measuring are there any kind of like hard data points that you can maybe point to of what it was like from before you had simulation training in place to after?
So one of the largest for me are the pre-inspection checklists. And so built right in to the onboarding screens, you can jump to the pre-inspections checklist for a piece of equipment. And so, previously we would be at the site, we would be working it, and students would roll through, whether they're in partners or groups, and they'd have their paper and their checklist. But again, we're able to take now, and students can individually work on that just like they will out in the field, real life, on a piece of equipment that might have a problem that wasn't there. And for gosh sakes, the one thing we didn't do is purposely put problems in our machines, right? You had a hard enough time getting them. The last thing you're going to do is disconnect a safety switch or a relay or some light on a piece of equipment. And frankly, it was happening enough without even trying. So here we're able to do that, and that happens to students. So that, again, it's part of those measuring and those assessments, and they may have one of a few issues that they need to deal with and look at, and it might be different than their partner or their classmate.
Yeah, personally, I was very involved in the development of the walk around inspection modules for CM Labs, and one thing that I was pushing for was the randomized faults. So something is wrong with the machine every time and it's different every time. In some cases, maybe there's 3 things wrong with the machine out of 28 inspection points. In other cases, maybe there's 8. Maybe there's only 1 thing wrong. And so it keeps the students on their toes, and they don't just memorize like, oh, the fire extinguisher is always missing on the excavator.
That's right. It's not like our old games where we knew the guy was coming out right after you turn the corner, right? It's not like that. And again, what's nice about that is that does level the playing field for assessments, but it also keeps that real life attribute that the last shift had no problems. Amazing. But now you have 3. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's just really cool to see. I mean, that's where the simulation shines, is where it can do things. There's one thing of like trying to replicate real life, which is what we do. We try to replicate the feeling of the dirt to feel like real life, the feeling of the hydraulics, the transmission. But there's some cases where you can do things on the simulator that you can't do in real life. That's one of them with the randomized faults. The other thing is being able to, change the weather on command and things like that, which is really fun. And seeing all that data that you don't get in real life. Um, to me, it's like the combination of those things that's super powerful when you can actually like zoom out and get this data. If you, even if you had a backhoe in the yard right now and training someone on it, you wouldn't be able to just tell how much pressure they're putting on, the bucket, and how much fuel they're using and how much idle time they had statistically.
Yeah, the placement. I'm thinking about the front end loader, right? It tells you how full the bucket is. It tells you your percentage, and you get the feel for what that is. It tells you how your load distribution is for the spoils and the articulation truck, and the balance of that. And you have to go in and you rebalance that yourself. So very accurate to real world scenarios that they have to work on. So works good.
And so your program has come a long way already. What are you excited about? What's next for the program at Alfred State?
So I think what we're most excited about is I'm excited to get into the actual building, right, and out of the temporary lab, and we're real close. Which we built this with students on campus, so it's great. They've been building their own lab, and so it's been fun. But the other aspect that's really grown momentum is the connection to industry, in the sense that we're really working hard at workforce development, as are probably many of our guests here today on here. And so seeing how this can expand the curriculum into not just a 2-year program, but micro credentials, short courses, industry training, things like that. The units can be linked together, right? So we can talk about working together. You can have the front end loader loading the articulation truck and things like that. And so they learn how to work together, right? And aspects which our industry needs. We also have really been excited because it's a hot topic. When folks come to visit, this is part of our visiting tour for an open house or something. And it allows folks to actually be a part of it right off the bat. Try it out, right? Sense what it is. And for us, that's a big part of success in our programs. Our students spend 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you're a heavy equipment operation. If you don't like it, it's not going to work. You're going to love it. Automotive, welding, you're going to love it. And because that's what we do all day, every day, which it's called life. And so we're training you for those aspects because that's what you choose. And so revealing that ongoing, revealing how industry is interested in this. When the students get to see that, it's creating those networks, those partnerships, which are great. It's also supporting an industry that has needs. And it's also reinforcing that when they aren't in here, which they're not now, and they're out there actually running the equipment, they're able to do more. They're able to go farther and explore new aspects of the training than they were before. They're not just learning the basics, like the very first steps. And so we've integrated things like trench cave-ins. They have water line breaks, or some of our high-end kind of things that are built in. And those are the levels that are now entering more and more of our program. And students are excited about it, industry is excited about it, and we're excited about it too.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I see a lot of people in the education world reaching out to industry and building those connections, and it's something that pays off for both parties.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good, and that's where I'm most excited, is to see the connections tightening up between industry on there. And so our next steps are really, my goal is 2 more. I want to get to 10 in our programs, and actually our next 2, our goal is to put them in a trailer, something that we can pull up next to the sim lab and be able to use 2 students per sim, so that it can do just what I was mentioning before, but also in those off times be able to pull it over to an industry partner who has a need, maybe some on-site training or something like that. And so one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this experience from an administration standpoint is working with the CM team to take the ideas that are out of here, right, or that the faculty kind of throw out, and start to work to try to develop some of that. That's been fun. And that's sort of where our next steps are going.
Yeah, that's really nice of you to say. I mean, it's been really cool working with you too, Jeff. That's one thing that we try to do is we're not like, you buy a simulator and then we never, hear from us again. We really want to be partners and see you succeed, because when you succeed, we succeed as well. So it all makes sense. And it's something that we really emphasize, is that you're not just like left in the dark. Here's, when you buy like some headphones or something, you buy the headphones and that's it. Whereas we want to be part of the simulator journey, because we recognize that, simulators, they're not everywhere. They're still a relatively new technology. People that are entering kind of the simulation world, they're kind of on the early adopter side. It's not everyone even knows that these things exist. So we don't expect everyone to be an expert right away. So we really like to partner with institutions.
And that's probably one of the things that I enjoy the best. If I look back and I say, what did we do right? Okay, what did we do right in this? The one thing we did right is to not try to do all at once. We didn't try to get all the answers. We didn't just go after the whole. What we did is there were moments where we had to nudge a little bit. I use that football analogy, the tush push, right? There were moments where folks were at the line, they weren't ready to do it. I was waiting for answers, and we just said, just do this. And we tried it. And it was like, okay, let's go to the next step. Tell me what you like and what you didn't like. And working together, it's been great, because we have learned along the way what we like, and also we've made connections with other folks that have similar questions. Again, the industry aspects, and it's helped us tighten up education to industry, which we've been trying to do that's our ultimate goal, right? Is to connect the two, and industry can support us, we can support industry. And it's not about just the 20 students that go through our program. We've got demands nationwide that are huge. And so the more that we can collaborate and work on together with other institutions, partnerships, training processes, the more we're all strengthened from that. So that's sort of the next kind of steps out here and the goals to see where we're going.
That makes sense. The other question that I had for you is if you had advice for a school, maybe someone here today who is looking to start a simulator program, what advice would you give them, knowing what you know now?
So I guess I'd first say don't be scared. And from a cost standpoint, it's a whole lot cheaper than an excavator. Okay. And so as we get going into things, we understand that we ask a lot of questions. One of the things that CM Labs did, you brought a unit out so we could look at it, so that we could try it out. And it wasn't just an hour, right? We had a couple days to kind of explore and figure things out. And so that was really important. I cross paths with y'all again at a trade show, and that's great. Get on, sit on it, see what it's about, get the feel for it. So I think that's what I would tell folks, is to kind of look around and touch and feel for yourself. If you know someone that has units nearby, make a friend and go visit, right? And hear their story. And that's kind of been a consistent approach, not just to simulators, but just in the last few years. Higher education in general is the partnerships, working together, understanding what works and how we can strengthen each other. Those are where I would say your first steps are. Make a friend.
That makes sense, right? Because I mean, you don't live in a vacuum. None of us do. So it's all about making those connections. Awesome. So it's 2:45. I see we got a ton of questions. So I think we should leave some time to answer these questions. Hello, Steve.
We're happy to feed the questions to you both. I'll go ahead and start with the questions that were put in the Q&A. And Bill asks, how are you getting the funding for so many simulators? I understand there are several machines in one. However, 130,000 to 175,000 is what I keep landing between to keep them providing enough content for our students. And as a school, this level of funding is a shifting and seemingly impossible annual battle. So how are you getting the funding?
Yeah. So, it's the upfront costs that are the hardest, I would say, if anything. But as I mentioned before, so is buying another backhoe. And so we use the same processes that I used for buying a backhoe that we use to buy the simulators. And that's work with our institutional advancement, work with our industry partners, those that are with us. The second aspect is our grant team. Their workforce and workforce training is huge right now. And nationwide, there's federal funding, there's state funding, there's funding out there to do that. So work with your advancement teams to strategize and look at opportunities. And don't necessarily go for broke. Start small, see the capacity, integration, and go from there.
Thank you. Sean asked, how would someone get started obtaining the simulators or partnering with Workforce Agency? I'm looking at creating a pathway for ESL learners, but I'm not located in a technical college.
I mean, I can answer the first one is definitely reach out to us at CM Labs if you're interested in the simulator. We can do a live demo over the web and we can show you different modules that you're interested in. So go to our website. It's cm-labs.com if you want to get more info. For the second part, I'll refer to you, Jeff.
Yeah, just repeat that second part, Steve, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, Jeff. I'm looking for creating a pathway for ESL learners, but I'm not located in a technical college. So really the question is, how do we get partnered with Workforce Agency?
Yeah, I think if it were me in that avenue, I would look at some of my local agencies that support that type of learning, right? There's different county organizations or community organizations that can do that. They may see those same struggles, have those same goals. And then from the approach of using this as a technical kind of approach, I don't think you necessarily need to be part of a technical institution to teach technical skills. It's what your curriculum or your course is designed to do. The words industry partner in there, I think that's where it's huge, because they're the ones that are going to hire the folks that you go through your program. So seek out a partner that's willing to maybe strategize and talk with you about that.
Yeah, thank you, Alan and Jeff. I think this question would go to you, Alan. Several people mentioned that they work in carceral settings or working in prisons, and certainly a prison's not probably not going to fund a purchase order for a backhoe, but they may for a simulator. Have you had experience with working in correctional environments for bringing in these simulators?
Yes, we have. In fact, I was just at a correctionals trade show in Long Beach, the American Correctional Association, 2 weeks ago, I think. And it was great. The response is great. If you think about it, it makes sense in the correctional environment, right? They're not going to have access to real equipment, like you mentioned. And you don't know what the job market's going to be like when they get out. Maybe when they get out, there's a job opening for skid steer operators. Maybe there's job openings for excavator. Maybe there's job openings for, a utilities company, right? And so what's important for these correctional institutions is to train their inmates such that they have some skills that they can use when they leave the correctional institution, and that they're way less likely to, reoffend if they have a job waiting for them basically once they get out. And so the simulators are what we found a great way for these correctional institutions to lower their recidivism rates, and really kind of improve the lives of the people that leave their facilities, right? So it's something that we're familiar with, and we work with often.
Thank you. Let's see. Kyle asks, and this is probably a question for Alan. Please touch base on having these simulators mounted in a trailer to make these mobile. What would be the pros of that, the cons? Do you know anything about the history of success in that application for a mobile trailer mount?
Yeah, even Jeff could chime in because I know that he's thinking about it too. But on our side, they're very successful. The way that it works is, yeah, we put simulators in the trailer. You can choose the size. You can even wrap it in your own custom branding and stuff. So it kind of serves as like a mobile billboard for you. And you can take it around. The pros are it's more mobile. You can take it around the state if you have multiple locations. You could take it across the country. You can leave it outside in your parking lot and just have it from there. You can hook it up to a generator, so you don't even need to necessarily have like power exactly where you are. Um, in terms of cons, I'm trying to look at it objectively. Um, maybe you can't have a giant classroom, right? The trailers are not going to be the size of a classroom. In some cases, you might miss out on some features that are available when you're connected to the internet. If you're in a trailer and you're somewhere where there's no internet, that might be a bit of a problem. But in general, the trailers are very well received. And Jeff, I mean, what are your thoughts? It's something that's been on
Yeah.
my mind recently.
Yeah, so I'll work backwards from where you were at. There's been many times where we haven't had the internet available, even in this location, and it's fine on there. There are enhancements that happen when we do, right? And it's great, but they function fine without on there. From the trailer aspect, we did a lot of research. The first thing I did is I took 2 units, put them in a trailer, and tried to take them somewhere. And I understood, what are some of those challenges. And so when we're working at right now to design that, it's aspects of the transportation, the monitors will pop off, right? So we can put them in easily for the transport, so they're not jostled around and such. And so it's just bolting down and connecting so that things don't move. But for us, we want to make this trailer part of the classroom. So we will have a heat source in there. We will have a power source as well to be able to simulate that. And to be honest, an awning that comes out. So when I go to a place and I need a little room for a classroom area besides those, we have that area as well. So we've been sort of playing with the mobile learning labs in a few other arenas and learn some lessons. And I'm just going to go back to make some friends. Talk to some people that have done it. They'll tell you what works, what they like. They'll tell you what they don't like. And that's been sort of what we've been doing. And when I worked with my sales support from CM Labs about this, that's what we just did. This is what I learned. This is what I liked. And we're sort of tweaking it out.
Great, thank you. Several people have asked Jeff about what curriculum you're using, and probably the hidden question is, would you be willing to share it?
Yeah. So curriculum, Alfred State, we end up designing our own curriculum. Our faculty are tradesmen and women, industry subject matter experts. And so we have course outlines that are drawn up by the departments and owned by the faculty. And then the curriculum is built by our teachers themselves. We don't use a prescribed curriculum, although there is curriculum with units to kind of outlie, and we pull parts and pieces of that for lessons, and that's great. But our overall curriculum is something we've developed, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'll click send and send you the world, but we're happy to talk and work together with folks as they explore and try to understand. And as the folks out here know, there's other aspects out there where there is prescribed curriculum on things, and for some folks that works great.
And there's a question from Tony, which says, what technical skills are students mastering faster because of simulation? Are the students arriving at the live equipment more confident and more competent?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm not even going to ask you who you're asking that to, because I'm just going to jump in and tell you the biggest thing is hand-eye coordination. Okay. Remember, we have students, I told you, come in from all levels. And there's the teach old dog new tricks aspect. So a student that learned some bad habits, we need to recorrect that as well. And so let alone the student that doesn't have any of those attributes. And so one of the aspects that the faculty have shared with me is the hand-eye coordination. The other thing is the ability to work in a crew. And that sort of surprised me, because the machines can be networked together, 2 or 3 working together. They have to work in tandem. They have to work together. And that's been skills that the faculty have said they really liked about this, and they wish they had actually learned about it sooner in the process. But are they more confident? I think the students are more confident. Absolutely. They're confident in their own skills. They're confident when they see the printout that tells them that they achieved this level, and they're confident that they followed all the safety protocol. They followed all the pre-checklist protocol, and they see it on paper, and it's assessed by someone that's not subjective necessarily, because it's a network of the program. Okay, so they are more confident, and are they more competent? Yes. I mean, nothing beats still getting out there. We still have our equipment. We still have our machines, backhoes, bulldozers, minis, the whole shebang. And so it is a piece of the puzzle to get to the end. But it has increased, and we've thrown numbers here and there, 30% here and there, things like that. And so we have increased efficiency. We have increased learning. And I guess the best thing I'd like to say is we've increased acceptance of different ways to learn to achieve the same goals than what we've been doing in the past.
Thank you. And this is probably a question for Alan. Veronica's asking about what's the cost?
It really depends on the platform that you have behind. Jeff is our Edge Max. We have more laptop-based versions. We have versions with 5 screens. So it really does depend on not only the platform, but what machines you have. So just reach out to us, and we'll let you know what that cost is depending on what you need. It's tough to say just off that.
Gotcha.
Steve, before you ask your next one, I just wanted to say that one unexpected aspect is we talk about cost that we didn't really interpret is, we didn't go into this thinking about forklifts, for example. And now understanding that the forklift training is a part of this, that isn't we teach students, we teach through our micro-credentials, but now that's part of the program that we're teaching our current faculty, our current employees at the college and institution. So from a cost perspective, it's also enhancing our own workforce.
Gotcha. And while we're answering the last couple of questions, maybe you please, Jeff and Alan, could put your contact information in the chat for those who would want to get in touch with you. We'll see if you can multitask and answer questions and type at the same time, which I'm sure you're both very capable of doing. Let's see, Bill mentioned his past experience with CM Labs and would say their support's excellent and the downtime's been non-existent. Thank you, Bill. And let's see, Veronica asks, what do you do for student recruitment to participate in this program? How do we do student recruitment?
So we utilize this. Well, first off, we're in person. All right. When folks visit, they get to tour the campus. We appreciate it. We like it when they're here, when our students are here, so they can see what we do, how we do it, day in and day out. And so I was just telling Alan earlier that we had a slew of tours this morning because for a lot of schools, and I'm in Western New York, there's a winter break going on, so we have a lot of visits. So we incorporate a visit to the room, to the lab, whether it's an open house or something, to see these in place. They talk with the students. They can hear from the students directly what they think about the program, what they think about what they're learning, and so it's a part of us. It's not something extra. It's just like here's what we do.
Great, thank you. Let's see. And Astor has a very specific question for Alan. Do you know a specific correctional education program in California so that we can visit first to convince my jail to fund us?
I think that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't have a specific name, but please like reach out to us and we'll let you know of some correctional institutions that you can talk to and get their take on the situation.
Well, very good. Well, I think we're out of questions, but the fact that so many great questions were asked, I think really shows the interest in this. And really want to thank you both so much for your time today to do the webinar. So much great information. And thank you so much, Alan, for bringing your expertise and Jeff for showing it how it works in the real world at Alfred State. Some really exciting things that you are involved with. But I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. And again, you will receive your certificate and other information following the today's webinar. And we look forward to seeing you at future COAB webinars. And thank you so much for giving up part of your day to be part of this PD experience. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.